What happens when a state decides how a woman should dress, how she should behave, even how she should exist in public space? That may sound abstract, but for millions of women in Iran, it is not. Today I want to talk about women, power and control, and why the body of a woman can become political territory. Because sometimes the way power expresses itself is not through armies or elections. Sometimes it begins with something as simple as a piece of fabric. Before 1979, women in Iran were not legally required to wear a hijab. They studied, they worked, they participated in public life. Iran at the time was not a democracy, it was ruled by the Shah. But women's dress was not codified into mandatory religious law. Then came the Islamic Revolution. In 1979, the political system transformed into a theocratic republic under Ayatollah Khamenei. One of the earliest visible changes concerned women. The hijab became mandatory in public spaces. This was not presented merely as a dress code. It was framed as moral order, as national identity, and as religious duty. And once morality becomes law, enforcement follows. Over time, what emerged in Iran was not simple a social expectation, it became a system. Women's clothing was regulated by the state, and the so-called morality police monitored compliance. Dress was no longer personal, it became political, but clothing was only the visible layer. Beneath it was a broader legal architecture shaping women's rights and status. In September 2022, a 22-year-old woman named Mahsa Amini died after being detained by the morality police for allegedly violating hijab regulations. Her death became a catalyst. Protests erupted across the country. The slogan that emerged was simple but powerful: woman, life, freedom. What made this moment different was not only grief. It was that the protest moved beyond dress codes. It became a challenge to the political structure itself. Women publicly removed their hijabs, some cut their hair, some stood in silence in public squares, some were imprisoned, and the state responded with repression, arrests, trials, force. As of 2026, enforcement mechanisms have intensified again: surveillance, fines, digital monitoring, public enforcement campaign. Yet something has shifted. Many women continue to challenge the rules, sometimes openly, sometimes quietly. Quietly, like when the Iranian women's national football team stood in silence during the national anthem. In a system where dissent can carry consequences, even silence can become a form of protest. As someone speaking from the West, I want to be very careful. This is not about cultural superiority. It's not about imposing Western models. It is about something more fundamental. Who controls a woman's body? The woman herself or the state? And that question transcends geography. Because once control over appearance is normalized, control over movement, education, speech, and political participation often follows. If we want to understand the situation of women in Iran, we cannot stop at the hijab. The hijab is visible, but the architecture of regulation is institutional. After the 1979 revolution, the new Islamic Republic rewrote the legal framework of the state. Iran's political system combines republican institutions, such as a parliament and a president, with religious oversight bodies. At the top sits the supreme leader. Legislation passes by parliament must be reviewed by the Guardian Council to ensure compatibility with both the Constitution and Islamic law. This is where women's rights became structurally redefined. Under Iran's civil code, a husband is legally considered the head of the household. A wife may require her husband's permission to obtain a passport or travel abroad. Divorce rights are asymmetrical, with men able to initiate divorce more easily than women. Child custody rules often favors fathers after certain ages. Inheritance laws allocate women a smaller share than male heirs in equivalent positions. In court, the value of a woman's testimony in certain cases may be weighed differently than that of a man. These are not simply cultural practices. They are codified statutes. At this point, people often say this is because of religion, but the reality is more complex. Sharia is not a single written law code. It is a legal framework derived from the Quran, the Hadith, and centuries of interpretation by scholars. Across the Muslim world, those interpretations vary widely. Some countries treat modesty as a personal religious obligation. Others codify it into law. Iran is one of the countries that chose the second path. After the 1979 revolution, specific interpretations of Islamic jurisprudence were embedded into the legal system, shaping family, law inheritance rules, and public morality regulations. So the issue is not simply religion. It is which interpretation of religion becomes law and who has the authority to enforce it. Historically, authoritarian systems, whether religious or secular, often begin social control by regulating women because women symbolize social continuity, family structure, moral narrative, national identity. Control the women and you influence the future. That is why the conversation matters beyond Iran. It is about the intersection of power and gender. Sometimes protest is loud. Sometimes it fills the streets. And sometimes it is silent. But in places where even silence can have consequences, what we are really seeing is not just protest. It is power. And who gets to decide how a woman lives?